Black at UCLA for women's leadership. This is March, which means it is Women's History Month. So we are happy to talk about women in leadership today. And with that, I will introduce the panelists and then introduce myself very briefly and get it going so that we have time for a Q&A for those of you in attendance. And we thank you all for taking time out of your busy day. Excuse my wheezy Jefferson voice. I do have allergies today, so my voice is a little bit different. But let's get this started, and I'm going to read off some bios quickly, and here we go. So first, I'd like to introduce our first panelist, Davyda Johnson. She serves as Director of Organizational Excellence for Business and Financial Services at UC San Diego. She possesses more than 2 decades of experience at the UC and currently serves as Chair of UCSD Black Staff Association. During her time in the UC, Davyda has received a number of distinctions, including serving as lead fellow and co-chair for the Chancellor's and System-Wide Advisory Committee on the Status of Women. Please give a virtual hand clap for Davyda Johnson. Up next, we have Molly Williams, is a recent UC Davis graduate, congratulations, and has joined UC Berkeley as an event specialist and course logistics coordinator. Molly has enjoyed event planning and is passionate about working behind the scenes to bring a project to life. Molly also strives to gain experience across diverse avenues and is happy to help wherever she can. I've witnessed this, y'all. She is very helpful. Next up, we have Katina Napper, is the Assistant Vice Provost for Academic Personnel at the Riverside campus with 22 years of academic affairs and personnel experience, 17 with UC Riverside. And prior to working at UCR, she was the Director of Faculty Affairs at California State University, Fullerton. Katina holds a bachelor's degree in public communication from American University in DC, as well as an MBA in business and an MIS information systems degree from Claremont Graduate University. Katina has spent the majority of her career in academic affairs, personnel, and loves sports and all things dance. This woman is doing the Lord's work, working in academics personnel. I know that feeling. And finally, we have Dr. Maria Martin, is an assistant professor of African history and critical race and ethnic studies at the University of California, Merced. Dr. Martin is a Black Studies Africanist and gender scholar who is invested in strengthening the field of women's intellectual history and gender studies in Africa. Dr. Martin sees herself as a teacher, scholar, activist, and characterizes her activism as her community engagement work, which connects the university to the community, a foundational principle of Black studies. In June 2020, Dr. Martin founded the UC Merced Black Alliance, envisioning the group as a coalition of Black staff and students, faculty, and community members. Please welcome all of our panelists and give them a nice virtual hand clap. All right, Dennis, I think we can get started so we can remove the slide or leave it up, however you want to. Okay, and with that, let's start with the first question because I like to go dive right into it. So I am thinking about leadership and how people define leaders. And according to W.C.H. Prentice, defines leadership as the accomplishment of a goal through the direction of human assistance. How do you define a leader? And I'm going to start with Katina first and then go to Dr. Martin after that.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My definition of a leader is quite simple in its rare form, in its raw form. It's someone's following you, someone's looking to you. And I believe that there are certain aspects of all of our lives where we are leaders. Someone is following you. Someone is looking to you for their next step. Someone is looking to you to inspire them. Someone is looking to you, provide them information. Sometimes that information is positive, and sometimes that information is, maybe that's not what I should do. And so at the very basics, to me, that's what a leader is. And then, of course, we have positional leaders, right? People who are assigned to be leaders. You have this job, you are this mother. There are positions in our lives where we are a leader and there is accountability around that, right? So I'm leading this, I'm accountable for these people. And so I'll just kind of start there and we can get into the discussion. But to me, those are how you would define a leader.
Okay. So, in response to that question, I would say that there is a difference between a boss and a leader. I know that people often say, they want to be a boss or, he's a boss, she's a boss. But I think that being a boss, obviously, it is the person who can show power, a person who can delegate, and maybe people might be intimidated by, their status or their position. But I think a leader is somebody who builds people. I think a leader is somebody who builds, who seeks to really support people, and they serve. Like, so a leader to me, a leader serves, and they equip people, and they want people to have gains, right? And they they lead by serving, but also through respect. So that's what I would say about a leader.
Thank you. And Molly, I'm going to throw this question to you too, as the newest member in the UC campus and growing as a leader on this campus. What do you expect out of a leader? Let's switch the question as you're new to campus. What do you expect from a leader or a mentor?
It was funny when I was looking at this question or thinking about it, a lot of things that came to mind, like being inspiring and empowering. I think, well, as I have a quote from MLK, he said, "A leader is someone who does not accept the status quo." And so I think a leader who wants to make change, wants to do better for others as a group, and doesn't take no for an answer in the best way, not in the worst way. And I also think a leader is someone who's empathetic, aware, a great listener, and someone who inspires and motivates in addition and can handle all of that with grace. I try to be a leader in everything that I do, and I'm still striving to improve my skills and improve that as I go along. And being a part of the UC has helped me do that. And I've met a lot of great people, like everyone on this board, who have helped me try to be that and want to become that.
Awesome. Thank you. Great
Can I
answer,
add a few
everyone. You
comments?
want to chime in?
Yeah. Oh, can I go ahead?
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to point out, and I love that this is where we went. We were talking about what defines a good leader, right? And so that's really important because all of the things that were said is what really defines a good leader. And a good and great leader is someone who's intentional about all of those things that you said. And it's someone who's continually working on those things. However, I do want to point out that there are people who are leaders, and whether they are good at it or not, they are in those positions of influence. And we have to be, aware of that. And it's often the leaders who don't have that positional power who are navigating those spaces.
Great comment. And not everyone is born. You're not really trained to be a leader sometimes. Some people are born with that skill set. There aren't really true trainings to be a full out leader. There's certain skill sets that are innate in you. So here's a tough one. As we all work at a UC, and most UCs are deemed a PWI, some are moving towards Hispanic serving institutions, but how do you address or handle those challenges in working at a PWI institution? And I'm going to start here with Davyda here.
Thank you so much, Ebony. How do we address working at a PWI or in these institutions? Sorry, my network is dropping in and out, so my apologies for the technical issues. I would say listen to understand and ask questions. You are going to be faced on a daily basis, depending on where you are, what unit, team, organization you're supporting. Ask the questions. Discrimination is not going away. We've been hearing about it for our entire lives, and generations before us have dealt with it and more. But I would say lean into your own understanding, ask questions, and seek out knowledge where you don't understand. And I'll stop there.
Great points, Davyda. Things are constantly moving in a PWI institution with all of the diversity initiatives changing. Dr. Martin, do you have any comments on how do you address it? And I know as faculty member, you get pulled into every diversity, equity, inclusion committee about, race and critical race and all that stuff. So what has been your experience and how do you handle working at a PWI as a faculty member that's pulled in so many ways to address things?
Yeah, a wise Black woman professor, Dr. Tamara Butler, told me once when I was coming out of my PhD program at Michigan State University. She told me that no matter where you go, to build community. And so this is what insulates you from the challenges, I think, that come with working at a PWI. And so I have sought to do that, especially with building the Black Alliance, a Black faculty staff organization that also reaches out to community and students. And I think that by building that culturally relevant and supportive space, it's really been an insulator and really has helped in a lot of ways in navigating some of the challenges. But also I pray and, I practice attention liberation. And attention liberation is thinking with a holistic perspective without having too much focus on any one perspective. So a lot of times I think people can easily, think about the negative, but they don't always think about, okay, for every serious issue that there is in the world, there are people working towards a resolution to that issue. So having a holistic perspective. And I choose to focus on also what's been helping me lately is focusing on God's providence and that divine care that God has through the love of Christ. So that helps to calm me and affirm me that, there's someone greater that has everything under control. And so with those things, with my faith, and then also with building community, I find that has really impacted my well-being in good ways in handling some of the challenges with being at a PWI.
That's awesome. I love a holistic approach because, like you said, many people just stick to one thing when you're working at a PWI. It's very great to be diverse in thought. That is awesome. And Katina, I'm going to look to you as the academic personnel in HR. What advice do you have that you could share with others? Because I'm sure HR and academic personnel, you've heard many stories of the difficulties possibly when working as a PWI as a Black woman. So what advice do you have?
Yeah, I definitely second everything Dr. Martin said. But as far as like advice in the workspace, I would say to really understand the policies, understand what your rights are, and really, I would say you're better off if you know who you are, right? Because that will be challenged. And I've had several instances, in my own professional journey where, who I was and who I was not, and what I was supposed to do, what I was not supposed to do was challenged. And so knowing knowledge is power, to be really frank. So number one, knowing that. I think really honestly, and I have some issues right now that I'm dealing with, having the courage to speak up is really important. Having the courage to say, this is not okay. University of California has lots of policies. We have anti-bullying, we have, principles of civility. There's all types of things that we have to help navigate. Don't assume that those things don't work. Work those things. And I would say too, also back to what Dr. Martin said, there are people working for good things. So it's not all bad. It's, sometimes your day may look that way, but there are people, there's community, there are people here to support you, but there's also policies and procedures here to support you as well. And it gets sticky sometimes because sometimes you're like, I'm not quite sure what this is. That's okay. Mm-hmm. Find your people to talk it out. And if you don't have any people, you do now. You can call me. I don't care what campus you're at. I will help you. So
I appreciate that, Katina, because everyone in this space is part of your UC-wide Black community, and advocacy, as you said, is important. And UC-wide, there are tons of resources. It's hard to know all those resources because there are so many. So use the people on this panel, use the people in this room to navigate through that. And Molly, did you want to comment on PWI experience at all? You're a recent graduate, so you have the student experience and now the employee experience. Do you have any thoughts on it?
I do not. I did go to UC Davis in my undergraduate and then recently joining UC Berkeley. I have not experienced a lot, I think consciously, but then later on I might think about things later on and think maybe that wasn't the way something should have happened, or maybe I'm just like thinking about it. But I think I need more time with myself and my thoughts to go through those things, but not yet, which I think is a good thing.
Mhm. That means we are treating you well and you're having a great experience at the UC. We want to keep it that way. There's a reason people like myself and Katina have been here, and Davyda have been at the UC since dinosaurs have roamed the earth. But but we love it here. But I'm going to shift a little bit. So we know in any given workplace that Black workers report discrimination, or one out of 4 Black workers. So I'm going to address this question. So whoever wants to take it first, go ahead, jump in. How do you address marginalization, discrimination, and or oppression when it comes from other Black women? So this goes to all, so whoever wants to tackle this question first, just go ahead and jump in.
Okay, I'll go. I'll be brave. Um, I think the best thing that I've been able to do over the years that has consistently worked is to be authentically myself. I know who I am. I know whose I am. And so a lot of times I'm just going to be myself. So I'm not going to give the energy that I'm getting. I'm going to respond in grace and love. But at the same time, I'm going to need that respect. And so if boundaries need to be put in place, they will be put in place. Don't try to girl, don't do that. But at the end of the day, I'm always going to respond in grace, because usually I would say 100% of the time, that's not about me at all. And I've seen relationships turn around because I've responded in grace. It's not easy, but we want to create the spaces that we want to be in. So I don't want to respond in these negative ways, or how people are treating me, because I don't want that space for myself or anyone else. I want to be about creating the space that I want to be in. So.
Awesome. And to add on, there's a nice comment in the chat about colorism within our own community. If anybody experienced colorism within that discrimination within our own, if you've experienced it, and if you've had that experience, maybe provide an example for our guest here today. So I will open that up to any of our panelists who wants to be brave and tackle that one. Don't be shy. Dr. Martin, I'm gonna look at you.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have experienced colorism. I'm not sure are they asking if we've experienced it in the workplace? Is that what they're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't say, I'm not pulling it up really right now, but I might be able to come back to that one. But I did want to address this this issue of discrimination or oppression when it comes to Black women. I definitely have, experienced that myself. And when that happens, I find that I've allowed myself to be disappointed. I think that we try to be all right, all of the time. But it's okay to be disappointed or frustrated or hurt, especially when you are receiving discrimination or oppression from somebody that you did not think that you would, or somebody that you don't think that you should be experiencing these things with. So, it's okay to be disappointed, to be frustrated, to feel what you feel. And for me, I vent to God. I also, vent to a trusted person or my trusted community about it. But when I respond, so I take time, to think about it and to feel what I feel, and then to gather myself. And I decide to maintain my morals and not to respond in a way that will go against my own integrity, because that will not leave you in a good place at all. So all of this talk about matching energy, I'm not matching energy. I'm maintaining integrity. And so I don't want to do the same things to others that they have done to me. So I do advocate for myself, and I try to be bold but tactful. That's my, my way of operating, just be bold but tactful, so that I can say what needs to be said, but that I am still being respectful and being honorable and maintaining my integrity. So.
I like that. Be bold but tactful. That is a great way to operate in a very diverse workplace. And when you come up against marginalization or discrimination within your own. Davyda, I'm gonna look to you. You know, I've experienced discrimination within our own. Most of the time it's because somebody wants to be the only one. Speak about an experience maybe that you've had where that has come up for you.
I haven't necessarily had a direct experience with discrimination. However, I have been in situations throughout my career where, let's go with the universal saying that we hear in our communities, all kinfolk are not our skin folk, or all skin folk are not our kinfolk. And what that really is saying is that sometimes because others may have a certain motive to advance their leveling within an organization, they will use your insights, your experiences as their own, to help position them in a better place. However, what I've learned, and I'm gonna kind of mimic what Dr. Martin and Katina said, is I'm not going to step outside the boundaries of my own moral compass. I also work in the human resources space, so I'm very, very familiar with kind of discriminatory practices, the policies, the whistleblower line, all of those things and opportunities or options that we have available as a resource. But I also know where the boundaries of trust are. And then when I keep that near and dear to me, it guides on how I'm going to respond, engage. I'm never going to step outside of a professional etiquette, if you will, because it's not helpful. And sometimes people are dealing with their own personal issues that you have no insight to, and it just is somehow misdirected to you. You're on the receiving end, or you caught the stray, as they say. And so sometimes it's just using those critical thinking skills to step back and say, okay, what is really the core issue here? What's going on with this particular exchange? How can I be of service? How can I be of value? And simply sometimes it's easier is to have a conversation, because I know we're doing a lot, by email communications. The tone can be warped, if you will. Sometimes it's just a matter of picking up the phone or walking into someone's office and having a conversation, really taking into those cues that you're going to hear verbally and non-verbally. And maybe it's something that you didn't hear, or maybe it's something that they did not intentionally mean to say. And I think having a conversation at the very least can help guide your path. Thank you.
I like that. Take it back to the old school. Pick up the phone, go knock on someone's door and actually speak to them and get those social cues that we normally don't get on the email. Accidental all caps letter and an iPhone correction can easily change what someone's intent may have been. So it's always good to speak to somebody and be grown and have that conversation. So we're going to keep this going. And we're going to go a little bit into Maxine Waters territory and reclaim our time. So how can we reclaim our time and well-being so that we are not overwhelmed by the pressure of our jobs? We know we're all doing 50-11 things, as we say in the Black community. It's not a real number, but we do 50-11 things at one time. So how do we reclaim our time and not be overwhelmed? And I'm going to put that to all, so whoever wants to take it first, go for it.
Oh, would I be able to address that question on colorism briefly?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so I do remember an instance where actually a Black man, felt very comfortable. Sometimes people feel comfortable talking to you about things if they assume that you also might feel the same way. And so he was talking to me about dark-skinned women and how dark-skinned women, basically they're negative, like there's all kinds of negative stereotypes about dark-skinned women. And I let him know that I was angry with him that he would say these kinds of things. And he was very surprised and he marveled at me and he was like, well, why would you feel that way? And I was like, well, if you're talking about any Black woman, you're talking about all of us. So I think that in response to that question, if you experience colorism, on the job, and let's say that you have the ability to, support that person or defend that person, please do defend, please do support. And if you're the one receiving, on the receiving end, please do seek support and seek, that community that will stand in the gap for you. But in response to this question, how can we reclaim our time? So I think that investing in ourselves by resting and filling our cup are with things that we enjoy, and having a cutoff time for work, those are things that I employ. And I just, yeah, I remember a time, so I said that I pray, I also meditate on, Bible scriptures. And one time I was meditating and, the Holy Spirit asked me, how are you filling your cup? And so, I knew that that was something that I needed to pay attention to, that was extremely important, to find things outside of work, that you enjoy, so that your time is not so taken over by work, because it's easy to do that. It's easy for your time to be just consumed by work. So that's what I would say.
I appreciate that. And those of you that know me know I'm a firm believer in the nap ministry. So meditation and napping is a form of activism. As we know, Dr. Martin is a very, very opinionated into activism. So napping is a form of ministry in our community. I'm going to take that question of feeling overwhelmed to all of those that do HR, because Katina and Davyda, y'all, I tell you, y'all do the Lord's work in those spaces. So whichever two of you guys want to take that question, please do. And then I'm going to circle back because Molly had a comment on something else. So we're going to circle back after that.
Thank you so much, Eboni. I will say, and I think it's been mentioned a little bit, but I will reiterate, is to set your boundaries tactfully and respectfully, but do not forget to set them. We continue as a whole, I'll say as a community, we give 150% to the point of pure exhaustion. Working around the clock, 14, 16, 18-hour days becomes our norm because we're trying to get it all done. But what we really realize is that the ROI is unbalanced. There's no such thing as getting it all done. It's always going to be enough work, and it's incumbent upon each of us to have those conversations with our leaders, our stakeholders, to say, I know you want me to prioritize this, but that means X, Y, Z can no longer be prioritized. You have to get comfortable in saying, I cannot continue to work at this pace. It's not feasible. And if you're not going to be able to give me additional resources, I only can prioritize X. You have to have the conversation, because we are working ourselves to death, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and otherwise. And then, to the point where you're getting those constant emails, requests, calls, or what have you, pause. When your stress level is up out of the door, you have to stop and pause and say, you know what, I can't do this right now. I need to step away. You have to be able to do that, to prioritize that. And if I cannot say anything else, our mental health should be our top priority. Whether it's therapy, spiritual advisor, a trusted friend, travel. And when I say travel, that could be a walk around your own block, a weekend trip, whatever that looks like. We have to figure out a way to try to find more balance, because our mental health, and I'll say as just a community as a whole, we're suffering. We're still dealing with the PTSD of COVID, the racial uprisings that have become just a norm, a blip on the news radar. It's everywhere around us. And if we are not good to ourselves, we say it all the time, we are no good for anyone else. That is the reason why, if you sit in the exit row on a plane, they tell you to put your oxygen mask on before you put on your children's. You have to think about yourself, and mental health is a priority.
Amen to what Davyda just said. I would give her a virtual mic drop, but I don't know how to do that on Zoom quite yet. Katina, you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, just really quickly. I also wanted to say a few comments about the colorism issue, because it's connected. So my experience is with my hair. because I chose to lock. When I was pregnant with my first child, I cut all my hair off and I locked it. And that was also when I was entering into, I would say, director level and above professional work, right? And so a lot of Black women told me to straighten my hair. And to me, that's a form of colorism. Like, girl, this is my hair. This is how it comes out of my head. So, and I think it's important when you're talking about colorism and really an attack on who you are authentically. That's what we're talking about. This is my hair. It's authentically my hair. And so I'm choosing to wear it. Also moving into how do you really, protect yourself. And it's really about identity. It's like, where do I identify? What path am I actually on? And it's really important for us to take the time to know that. For me, I love the Lord, and so that's the path I'm on. And so a lot of times when I'm attacked in these ways about the way I look or how much work I should be doing and what I should be over here and over there, I have to remember my path, right? The path is going to determine where you go. And it's really important to always remember that. And on top of that, understand that like Davyda said, you cannot take care of anybody if you don't take care of yourself. You literally cannot. And I've had my bouts with that. But ultimately, in the Black community, we don't have the luxury of doing all these 50-11 things. Our community needs us. Okay. So I think, we need to think in terms holistically, individually, but also together as a community, how we can really think about these issues in our community, because together we can move forward. It's important for us to think together. So
I like that. The caregiver needs care too. Isn't that the saying? The caregiver needs care too. And oftentimes we as Black women and Black folk, we are caregivers, not just for ourselves, not just for our families, but for an entire community. So we wear the weight of the world on our shoulders. And I'm going to circle back to a question or a thought that Molly had about discrimination and with older Black women within the community. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, it was actually going to be touching on what Katina just said about hair. And so I haven't experienced discrimination. I'm still early in my professional field. But one thing I have experienced is comments about my hair. Right now I have braids, but usually I have an afro and I don't wear that to work. It was something my mom said, and it hurt coming from my mom, and then have it being said by older Black women within our community. Just like have a more professional hairstyle and things like that. And it hurts that it's coming from them because we want as much support as possible. But I think it does come out of a place of love, because I think they want us to be the best versions of ourselves, get the best opportunities. And there's also a clash of different generations going through different things, and natural hair and the different hairstyles that Black women have are becoming more widely accepted. So it's hard to forego those thoughts. And so you're just trying to do your best for this young person that you see, and you're like, maybe you should wear this hairstyle or maybe this, so that way you don't get discriminated against, nothing bad happens. But there's never a reason to like give them a reason to say no to you. So I think it does sometimes come out of a place of love, but also with what Katina said, you have to know who you are. And as for me, I'm still learning who I am, and my natural hair is something that's a part of me and I love it. So I'm going to be doing my best to wear it out more at work and just love it and cherish it as much as possible. And I do also have a comment about how to reclaim your well-being and not being overwhelmed with work. I have a twin sister, and she is honestly the greatest definition of someone who takes care of her self-care. Like, it's a number one priority for her. She's super great at having time for herself. She has self-care Sundays now, and she is on it every single week. And so I'm trying to implement that, but it's hard because I jumble a whole lot of things. But I think what's helpful for me as I'm starting out early in my professional career is having those strict business hours. I try not to answer emails after 5:30 or 6 o'clock. I at 7 p.m. But okay. And I try not to answer them. So for me, at least, I try to have those strict hours. So later on, it's easier and I don't fall down like a rabbit hole. And yeah, that was my input.
I love that. And we're the only people, I believe, that has legislation on our hair, the Crown Act. How sad is that? We're the only people that need permission to wear our hair the way we want. So Molly, I will tell you as a young person who wish my hair could be natural and could fro up, wear your fro, please, because I am jealous and envious of all women whose hair can be a little bit more versatile than what I wear all the time. My hair just rejects it. I don't understand. I blame it on some of the ancestors, but it rejects being natural for most of the time. So I'm
Yeah.
going to pose another question, and I think I'm going to give this to Dr. Martin and Davyda. In your view, what is one simple thing that can be done in our campuses and communities to support Black women?
I would say protect their time and energy, and I think that can be done in a few ways. So ask if they need help, create and maintain culturally relevant spaces for them to be heard and to thrive, and then create and maintain opportunities for them to have upward mobility and achieve success. I think that all goes into helping them to not be overwhelmed, and also helping them to receive their due, right? So a lot of times we talked about this already, we do a lot of work, but it's not always that we're compensated properly for that work. So creating those opportunities to have upward mobility and achieve success, I think would be would be helpful in, giving Black women their due, but also those culturally relevant spaces are important for them to be heard and, and to thrive. So, you know, I think that doing these things would help to try to protect their time and energy, because time is obviously something that we don't get back. It's a very precious resource. And our energy is also finite and it needs to be replenished. So that's what I would say to that.
Thank you,
I
Dr. Martin.
appreciate that. What do you think, Davyda?
In a more simplistic approach, I would say walk the talk. We can all look across all of our institutions and our locations and find an EDI, a DEI, a policy, a statement of university, principles of community or principles of civility, and it's about treating each other with respect, for the most part, engage in a way that you want to be engaged with. But more importantly, when we talk about compensation and when we talk about, seeing us in roles that are in positions of power or elevated roles, it starts with the talent pools. Where are we strategically as an institution looking to cast the net wide? Are we really going into spaces, the uncommon spaces, to look for diverse talent pools? I say we're never going to see us in these elevated roles if they don't start with a strategic approach to kind of find us, right? Are they truly sourcing talent, or are they doing the bare minimum to open up positions, advertise them, and whoever applies, that's just the end of it? No one has any say so. I do not believe we are taking a consistent strategic approach in really building out robust talent pools. And then when you get those diverse talent pools, or how are you ensuring that there's equity in the decision, unbiased capacities in the decision? Do we see any of us on those pools? I would venture to say we most likely do not. One, just by sheer numbers, right? But we have to, again, challenge the status quo. It starts with our pools. We are not seen enough and we are not represented enough in those decisions. And it's just a matter of, speaking up and asking, is there a platform to do so? Is there a platform so that, someone who looks like me as a woman, a Black woman, are we represented? And then be able to, to push that consistently. We're not there in the pools. We're not in the pools. And so how do we get in the pools?
I appreciate that, because I've been on campus for a long time and have grown up on the UC campuses, and I've noticed the decline in seeing people that look like me. And, oftentimes, yes, we have EDI, we have all these things, as you stated, but maybe we should take a Kaiser Permanente approach and practice some form of preventative care and promotion and marketing to get a pool of strong Black women, talented Black women, as you said, and then we could thrive a little bit better in those areas. So maybe take a lesson from Kaiser Permanente.
And it's not a matter of just having our faces on the website, because I think
Right.
that's where some of the energy and time is spent. And it's like, no, you're just pulling images off Google.
For hiring actors, it's
Yeah.
an optical illusion, right?
Right.
So
Thank
I'm
you.
going to go to an audience question from Stacy Curry. Stacy, I'm sorry, I don't know which campus you're from, but Stacy wanted to know, how have you had to navigate power struggles with peers? And if so, how have you handled those? So this is for all of you to answer. So whoever wants to jump in first, go ahead.
Yes. So I think that especially working on the academic side of the house, um, there's a fair amount of that. The way I really handle it, it's kind of like somebody's in a fight with you, but you didn't even know there was a fight. Like, to be honest, and it's like, because my role is my role, your role is your role, right? And if we're on opposite sides of an issue, that's okay. It's fine. I'm not adverse being to being disagreed with or disagreeing or being wrong. And so the power struggle is usually around, you need to do what I say, or I'm right, or some of these things. And it's like, for me, it's always about, the collective getting to the best. And so I'm not necessarily about Katina's agenda being pushed forward. I know I have a lot of great ideas. I do. I know I'm smart. But that doesn't mean that everything that I say will be implemented, and it's okay. And so I guess for me, I usually am quite surprised that I'm in this power struggle. But at the same time, if it gets to a point where it's disrespectful, if it gets to a point where I need to set boundaries, I will advocate for myself. But I am not someone who needs to be right. And that actually helps a lot with having no stress around these things.
Anyone else want to tackle that? Okay, so we're going to pose this question to everyone. Who in your life is your unsung hero? Think deeply now, dig deep. It could, you never know who has played a part in your role, or played a part in your life that has had a strong impact. It could be anybody. So think hard. Go ahead, Mom.
I have actually two recent ones. Their names are Brianna James and Anthony Edward. I recently got back into dance. It's something that I do like weekly to relieve stress, and it's very, very fun and exciting. And I've progressed so much since I started back up with it. But I go to Afro Vibes every weekend, jazz funk with these two, and they're amazing dance instructors that just provide such an open and safe place for people to express themselves. And everyone, I mean, everyone in the class always feels confident, empowered, and just excited, and just everything's just so great after their classes. And they always have mantras of, you're worthy, you're enough, you're empowered. I hope you guys have a great day. Please come back. And they're just two amazing individuals that I love going back to every single week. And if you're ever in Sacramento and want a great Afro Vibes class, Brianna James is the one to go to because she is amazing. I love her so much.
That's awesome. I need to take me a dance class. I haven't danced in a while. My knees aren't as good as they used to be. Let's see. Katina, who you got? Who's your unsung hero?
Oh, wow. I would say my unsung hero is actually my husband. My husband thinks I can change the world. He thinks I could do anything. Like, he's always like, oh my gosh, you're so amazing. Like, and it's so genuine. And a lot of times I'm like, am I? But he is amazing. Like, he's definitely my best friend, but I would say people don't know that about him. He's probably going to be so embarrassed that I said this, but anyway, he's my biggest cheerleader, and it's just amazing. So yeah.
I love it. Davyda, who you got?
I will say that it is my maternal grandmother, rest in peace, with her sixth grade education from rural South. She was the most intelligent woman that I knew and a fiscal financial expert in every possible way. She taught me everything about money management with her sixth grade education. It does not get better than that. The gems that she poured upon me during my childhood, which of course I had no inkling of understanding, but they were all so very needed, and I keep them near and dear to my heart every single day. So yeah.
I appreciate those old sayings, like never let the right hand know what the left hand is doing. And you're like, I don't understand. I'm 5. I love you, Nana, but I'm 5 years old. I need both my left and my right hand. I don't understand, but I can't tell them what to do. But these are definitely gems that we hold dear and true to our heart from our grandparents that did not have the same opportunities then that we've had, and I appreciate that. Dr. Martin, who you got? Who's your unsung hero?
Yeah, I would definitely have to say my grandmother, you know, and also my best friend who's 98, Pauline. You know, I talk about her all the time to anybody who will listen. You know, she's been a really great impact. I mean, she's had such a huge impact on me, but you know, they both shaped me in immeasurable ways. My grandmother, you know, she went to be with the Lord, but she is and has been, you know, such a intelligent and tenacious woman, faith-filled woman who loved education. She actually could not read and write because her family were sharecroppers, and you know, so they were dealing with all of those issues of, you know, of race um and trying to survive in an equitable environment. And so she had to drop out of school in the 3rd grade and help, you know, her family and things like that. And so she wanted to be a lawyer, you know, and she was an entrepreneur actually, and she did very well. You know, she bought a house in a really nice neighborhood. It was actually a neighborhood that was reserved for white people, for upper class white people. And she did so well with her business that she could, you know, so even though she couldn't read and write, the one thing I want people to know too is that um, having the lack of or having certain skills does not mean that you are not cognitively able, that you don't have intelligence. Just because you don't have certain skills doesn't mean that you are not intelligent. I mean, she was a brilliant businesswoman. And they actually did not want to sell a house to a Black person in that area. So they sold her the house, but not the land. So they broke the house from the foundation and moved it to, you know, another place, another area. But she was always just so tenacious. She kept on working. She kept on trying. And she gave us more, you know, of an opportunity to get the education that she never was able to have. And so I look back on that, and the reason why I have people call me Dr. Martin, you know, because we have a culture in the university where you just, oh, hey, Maria, or hey, you know, you call people by their first name. First of all, in Black culture, you don't call people by their first name. I didn't know my grandmother's first name, you know, for a long time. Like, I didn't know my mother's first name until I heard my father calling it, but I know I couldn't call it, you know. And so I have people call me Dr. Martin to, you know, just remember, like it's a linguistic historical memory in that name, because she was not able to get an education, but my mother was able, you know, to go to college, and then I was able to be a first generation PhD because of the legacy and the work ethic that she laid down. But also Pauline, you know, she really helped me to build my self-esteem and grow in my character and the way that I carry myself. And she's always encouraging me all the time. And she has the greatest sayings. She's also an activist. She's from Chattanooga, Tennessee. She had her run-ins, you know, refusing to give up her seat to a white man on the bus, and her friends thought she was gonna die that day because she said, you know, she was gonna fight that day, you know. And I think she said that the man told her, "Nigga, give me your seat," and she said, "Well, um, I'm not your nigga." And she's like, you know, she was gonna fight back no matter what was gonna happen then. And so she's a bold woman. She's an activist too. And from her, you know, just from her spirit, I just love learning from her. And one thing that I love that she said is that, you know, I was born in Chattanooga, raised in Tennessee. If you don't like my apples, don't you shake my tree. Okay. So they have really impacted me.
I truly appreciate everyone speaking on grandparents and linguistic heritage of African Americans, because I swear I did not know my aunt's name was Caroline for the longest time, because my grandmother and everybody in the family called her Pumpkin. I thought her name was Pumpkin. Who names their child Pumpkin? For the longest time, I thought it was Pumpkin. I thought her sister was Bitter Baby. They had no names to me. Those were their names, because we were children. We're not supposed to know that their real names are Caroline and Savannah. It just doesn't happen in our household. But we have time for one more final question. We're gonna call this Final Jeopardy for all of y'all. And let's see what we have here. So if you can go back in time when you first started in your career, what piece of advice would you give yourself from back then? And this is for everyone, so whoever wants to take it.
I can start.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I think I have 1.5 pieces of advice I would give myself. As all of us have mentioned before, we tend to juggle a lot of things and we're doing a lot. We always give 150%. And I thought I was alone in that, but it's great to hear that all of us experience that, or majority of us do. And so I think when I was working 3 to 4 jobs in college and just bussing and hustling, I would say keep going. It's going to pay off because I'm here now, I'm in this role, and I'm also meeting a lot of different opportunities and opening new doors, which is great. And I think another major piece of advice I would like to give myself, even though I'm very early in my career, something I'm still working on is it's okay to ask for help in all aspects of life. I tend to never ask for help, especially in my personal life, work life, but especially coming into my first professional job after college, I didn't know a lot, and so I had a lot to learn. And my team made it very easy to ask for help, and they're very welcoming. And it was nice having that as my first job. Otherwise, I would have never asked for help on a lot of other things. But they make it easy, and they don't make it bad or make it worse. Like, oh, you don't know how to do this, and then but it's just really easy with them. And I think that's what I would give myself earlier.
I would say continue to invest in your relationships and your community. Keep your community tight. The people who know you, the people who care about you, the people who root for you, keep them close because along your journey, you're going to want to celebrate with them and you're going to want to come cry to them. You're going to want to seek their advice. And because they're the ones who are going to tell you, yes, you're right, or girl, no. And you need that. You need that throughout every state of your career.
Thank you for that, Katina and Molly. I will say, be kind to yourself. Don't be afraid to fail. You're gonna make mistakes, but that's not the end all be all. It's okay. Dust yourself, get up again and try the next time. It's gonna be okay. Number 2, understand the power of no. It is a complete sentence. If you cannot do it, please try your best not to overextend yourself, because as Molly just mentioned, we are doing a lot, we're juggling, but you want to be comfortable and not overextend, because you don't want to crash out. And it can be easy to do. And then lastly, protect your reputation at all costs. It matters. It matters more than you will ever know. You never know a quick, curt exchange with someone when you're stressed out and you just couldn't take it and you said it. Just think about it before you say it. I said pause earlier, and I really mean that. Pause. Thank you.
Dr. Martin, you got the final word.
I would say to build healthy traditions. One time I was looking at, so I was reading about Daniel in the scripture in the Bible, and when children of Israel went into the Babylonian captivity, and then they had a new culture that was surrounding them and everything. He maintained, it says that he returned to the tradition of his youth, which was prayer and which was worshiping, his God. And when I thought about that, I said that, it's really essential to have traditions, to build traditions, because when things go awry, if you've already built the tradition, then it'll help you to navigate the issue that you're presently, facing. So I think of it as this, so when people say they want to build a work-life balance, I always say, I do not want a work-life balance. I don't want that. I don't want to work, because when you balance something, it's a scale, right? So you try to get it to be equal. I don't want to work as much as I like. And so for me, I want to build a rhythm, that where my work is a part of the rhythm of my life. And I think that that's a better way for me to navigate things too as they come up. I think of the quote by Bruce Lee, be water, my friend. So it's like when water is in a stream, when you see a stream and there's a rock in the stream, the water doesn't come up like, oh, what are we gonna do, y'all? We can't get around this, we can't go over it. No, the water is going to bend, it's going to be flexible, it's going to handle that obstacle by being flexible, but it's going to also return to its own tradition, right? Return back to the way that it was flowing before. So if you can be flexible like the water, you can, and you already have a tradition, right? You can, return to that tradition, even if you have to step away from it for a little bit. So having a tradition of caring for yourself is really essential. Having a tradition of filling your cup, having a tradition of resting. Don't send that email. Have a cutoff time, like, yeah, you could do this, you could do that, but it's better to, just take that time and rest. And I often will tell myself, slow down, be intentional so that you can thrive casually. Because I remember there was a point, where I was just so overwhelmed and, really kind of stressed about things. And then I was meditating, and the Holy Spirit told me, you need to appreciate yourself more. And I was like, oh, the Holy Spirit, I appreciate myself. But it was, that was really meant to get myself back on track, because I think maybe other people could identify with this, is that we have a strong track record of not giving ourselves credit for things. But instead of doing that, I'm trying to change by bettering that rhythm and actually thinking about the things that I have accomplished, thinking about the things that I have done, thinking about, the things that are good that are surrounding me as well. So the last thing that I will say is to do what's expedient and not what's expected. Do what's good, not what's glamorous, and do what's practical and not what's pretty. Because I think we get trapped up in trying to do what we think is expected of us, instead of doing what's expedient or what's good for us. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Well, amen to that. And I like to leave y'all with two things is as Black women here, we do a lot. So let go, let God. And as my father would say, don't worry about the things you cannot control. So with that, I'd like to thank our panelists. I'd like to thank my steering committee, Sharon, Dennis, and Thimi, and Dennis for thinking of this great idea and getting this panel and doing the hard labor behind the scenes. Just know all of you in this space are appreciated. Reclaim your time, visit the Nat Ministry, take some Afro beats, meditate, get a good gospel spiritual word from Dr. Martin, and all will be right with the world. So with that, you guys have a great afternoon, and we will see you at the next BLAC at UC event. And we out.